Hello, what is going on? What is up? Hold on. Sorry, y'all. Let me get myself together. Um, what's going on, everybody? We are I was talking to Chuck Littleton, who came on with me on Monday night, our Monday Night Light show, and it's still doing really well. If you haven't checked that out, go to the channel and go to the live section, and then you can see that. Hey, Jesus loves you. Oh, thanks for coming on. I was thinking, I was like, I know this is like an out of the norm live, but the Monday Night Live, people are watching, and so we wanted to. Chuck and I wanted to, um, expand on that. We're going to be talking about Iran and this divide in the MAGA movement. We're gonna dive into that. We're not gonna hold you too long, but you know make sure you hit the like button, share this video out, and of course subscribe if you have not subscribed. Have you guys I just put out another video. Candace is offering $10,000 for small YouTube channels who are getting requests to talk about her. And so because people were in my comments, like after me and Chuck's live, they are like, oh, you're getting paid. I said, listen, if Candace wants to send a girl a check, I will gladly send her my Cash App or my Zelle. Hey, Paul. Or if she want to send it by plane, by train, by bus. But I guess it's like if you anyway, I don't know. I don't know why these things bother me so bad. Because it's not like I mean I can't save people. That's God's job. God does the saving. We try to lead the people to Christ. But it is hard for me to listen to people like Tucker and Candace. Those are the two most popular ones that are saying these things. It's like really hard for me to listen to people like that without it just getting under my skin. I'm going to try to be better because, my hormones are kind of wacky right now. Not kind of, they're wacky. And so I need to just try to maintain my calmness. But anyway, there's this notion that because we are America first. I'm America first. I know Chuck is America first. I know everybody that I know wants America to be first. We want America to be taken care of. First, our needs, our roads, like we got problems. Immigration, we got problems up and through our country. I think if we didn't believe that, there would be a problem. If you can't see that America has problems, I don't know what to tell you. So we have a lot of problems. But just because we have problems at home doesn't mean the way we are the superpower of the entire world. We have interest in other parts of the world besides our homeland that can affect how we live in the homeland, that can affect if we can even live in the homeland, because there are people who want to kill Americans. They literally shout death to America. Y'all know this. There are people that want to kill Americans. Exactly, Paul. I'm Jesus and America first. Exactly. Like this, I don't feel Paul, why are people making us choose? Like, I am of the belief that we could be America first. And also, if we need to handle business, in the Middle East or other places, then we'll do that. You know? Like, and that I don't does that make me a neocon? Because if somebody is threatening us that we know, like in Iran, like Iran, is it Paul, Jesus loves you? Is yeah, I need why is that wrong? That if we have, you know, foreign, if it's not an America first problem, it's an overseas problem, but it can affect Americans because they do call Israel the little Satan and they call America the big Satan. We are the infidel. Y'all know how they be talking about us. They can't stand the Jews. They can't stand Israel and they cannot stand Americans. Now, to me, it is obvious what this is about. I tweeted a little bit ago that culture is ultimately about what God you worship. These fights, God has never backed away from from political, from nations. Like these are political things. We see God, tell Israel to go to war. We see God, with different people because of their culture. We see, or just like disrespecting, disrespecting the Jews and God not being happy with that. God has always been involved in the earth. Like he's always got, and Christians and Jews are the only religion that share a God. And it's funny to me how the Muslims hate Israel and America. Now, why would Muslims hate Israel and America? I think this is like a moment with Elijah and Baal, where Elijah, it's like a show off. Whose God is going to win? Whose God is superior? Hi, William. Oh, let's see. William has a little tea for us. Candace, I have heard, is hating on Trump because she was passed over for the job of press secretary. Could be true. I don't know. No, I don't think so. I mean, it could be true, but I think this is genuinely a hatred for Israel. Y'all look at this clip really quick. Yeah, now I am not the person that is always like, this person that they got a demon and that person has a demon and this is a demon every, demons around each corner. But there is a vitriol. It's like it seems like Candace is going past just her personal opinion about Israel. She seems to be internalizing this, and I think it's going a little bit deeper. But watch her when she's talking about this.
Bunch of Iranians, then he would say the same thing because it's a place, right? So Ted Cruz would say, my Bible commands me, I will be blessed if I bless those who bless Israel. He's talking about a place, a physical place, and anybody could be in there and he would back it. It's an absolute nonsense for him to suggest this. And like I said, it's also a theological disaster. And it's so important for people to learn the history, the true history of the Schofield Bible and this sort of modern dispensationalist belief, which has been so toxic to our foreign policy and has been pushed in large part. It's even the hyphening of Judeo-Christian values. I'm a Christian. I am not, I'm not Jewish. I am a
Are you a Kathy says, Keisha, are you dispensational or covenantal in your biblical theology? I don't know. I don't think I'm I don't know if I'm either. Because I was listening to my spiritual father, he taught me about Schofield. I was 19 when I was being when I got saved, and God was doing everything, doing renewing my mind and coming to get me, coming to save me. And my spiritual father taught me about Schofield, but he was like, yeah, like there are some things in there, it's, maybe you possibly consider. But here was his main point with that. He said, at the end of the day, it's not salvific. There are some people who believe this, some people who believe that, and some in between, but he was like, some things are mystery. Basically, don't get too caught up into the end time stuff, because we don't know. And Jesus told us that we don't know. So as far as the end time dispensational or covenant, I don't think I'm either. And I'm not even quite sure what the covenant theology believe about the end times. But I would say when it comes to Israel, this is what I know. This is what I know. I know that they are God's chosen people. They were chosen as the group to bring Christ through and to then spread his message. That's what they did. God says that I'm going to basically blind you in part because they were disobedient. But then he says, I'm not going to leave you out there because you are my people. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. But it's not where there is nothing in the Bible that says God is through with Israel and that they automatically just Christians who have accepted Christ replace Israel. Now I know that that's a lie from the pit of hell, because God describes Israel as the root and we are the branches. Now y'all tell me, how can branches survive without roots? How can a tree survive without its roots? We are more Jewish. Christianity is a Jewish religion. Jesus was a Jew. Like, that's why I don't understand this stuff. Let me get my friend Teach Him Chuck up here. No, wait. I'm sorry. Let me finish this one. Let me finish this piece that Candace did, and then we'll bring my good friend Chuck up.
Christian. My values are Christian, and frankly, you should believe that a country which has involved itself as Israel has in blackmail, in murder, in bombing children, in murdering and starving women and children to get what it wants, the deception. And I mean, you could talk about it on a widespread level. You could talk about it on a historical level. You could talk about it on a molecular or a personal level. It is like a requirement to support.
Did y'all hear that? Listen to what she said.
About it on a widespread level. You could talk about it on a historical level. You could talk about it on a molecular or a personal level. It is like a requirement to support Zionism. You just have to lie. You have to lie like all the time. I mean,
that's crazy. Widespread, basically, it don't matter how you look at Israel and Jews. If you look at them, this is what I got from what she said. If you look at them on a widespread level, if you look at them on a historical level, if you look at them on a molecular level, and if you look at them individually, that is hate, y'all. If maybe she needs to go back and rephrase what she said, but to me, that is not, I just have some unpopular opinions about this country. She has literally said everybody in that country, historically, widespread, depth, width, tiny, big. If you are Jew, you have to lie. You are liars. You're not good people. That's hate. That sounds like hate. Y'all let me know. I don't know. That just sounds crazy to me. That's some other stuff right there. Anyway, let's get my good friend. What is up? What's going on, Chuck?
Hey, what's going on? First of all, let me apologize for my appearance. I try to look a little decent when I came up. I just got this old raggedy sweatshirt that I work out in. I just had to throw something on real quick. I'm actually packing up. I'm preparing to go on a little family trip for the weekend tomorrow.
Yes.
So
yes, very nice.
nothing major, but
No,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
told me about the trip. That sounds really, really nice. Y'all doing it real big. Y'all doing it big. Okay. I'm gonna tell Antonio. I'm like, listen, let me tell you what Chuck is doing, please. Like, we need to do that. That sounds
Yeah,
really, really sweet.
yeah.
Yeah.
My wife, she gave me the side eye. I said, nah. I said, me and Keisha, we went live for 3.5 hours the other day. I'm like, it's not gonna be another one of
Oh
those.
no. Shell, I promise. I already told Antonio. Plus, I'm not feeling that good.
Mm, yeah.
Menopause, perimenopause, but yeah, but
Yeah.
we're gonna get through it. But I
Yeah.
wanted to, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to comment on. I heard. I heard a lot of what you were saying as I was mulling around, walking around, trying to get myself together
Uh-huh.
before I cammed up. And I mean, you said something that stuck out to me. Last time we spoke, I mentioned a man named Omar Amin.
Mm-hmm.
His born name was Johann von Leers. He was a German Nazi. He was a member of the Waffen SS.
Mm-hmm.
And he survived the Second World War. Wound up in Egypt, where he became a top advisor to President Gamal Nasser, and actually joined an organization called the Egyptian Information Department. He's part
Mm-hmm.
of. Essentially, he was a bureaucrat, part of the Egyptian government. And it's funny that you say that about Christianity being like sort of like almost like Judaism 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to get into a lot of theological things, because a lot of people hear that and say, well, that's technically not true because this says this and this says that. It's like, okay, man, whatever. But I mean, people were listening to you in good faith. They obviously understand the point that you're trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
But Johann von Leers, aka Omar Amin, said the exact same point about Christianity and Judaism. He despised both faiths. He considered Christianity to be what he called a quote bastardized version of Judaism, is
Mm.
what he said. And two, if you've ever read Karl Marx's essay called "On the Jewish Question,"
Mm.
Karl Marx he makes the same essentially makes the same claims as well.
Really?
Hmm.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I actually know I have some excerpts from Karl Marx's essay on the Jewish question here in front of me. I just gotta sift through this pile of notes and information that I put up here to try and find it. But yeah, Karl
Control
Marx.
F, Chuck. Control
Yeah,
F.
yeah, I know. And I'm trying to remember that there's so many. There's so many. Yeah. What does this say here? If I can find it. So here is. Yeah. So here is Marx on the Jewish question. An excerpt from that essay. If anybody's interested in reading it, you can probably find it on Marxist.org. But Marx would say in that essay, and in that essay, he was responding to his one-time friend and collaborator, a man named Bruno Bauer. And here's Marx on the Jews. He says, Christianity sprang from Judaism. It has merged again in Judaism. From the outset, the Christian was the theorizing Jew. The Jew is, therefore, the practical Christian. And the practical Christian has become a Jew again. Christianity had only in semblance overcome real Judaism. It was too noble-minded, too spiritualistic to eliminate the crudity of practical need in any other way than by elevation to the skies. Christianity is the sublime thought of Judaism. Judaism is the common practical application of Christianity. But this application could only become general after Christianity, as a developed religion, had completed theoretically the estrangement of man from himself and from nature. The social emancipation of the Jew is the emancipation of society from Judaism. Now you probably have to go over that and read that
Yeah,
several
there's a
times
lot.
in order to really understand what Karl Marx is saying. Again, he's saying the social emancipation of the Jew is the
Mhm.
emancipation of society from Judaism. He wanted to rid
The
society of
of
Judaism.
Judaism.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Karl Marx is a person who uh, was born Jewish. He's an ethnic Jew,
Mhm.
but his father would abandon Judaism. His father would become a Protestant. He would convert to Lutheranism.
Mm.
In a town in Germany at the time where Karl Marx was a young boy, he was born in a German town called Trier, which is a predominantly Catholic town. So his family, even from that point, kind of stood out
Mhm.
as Christians, particularly again as Jewish Christians.
Mhm.
And Karl Marx, for the earlier stages of his life, his high school years and going off into college, he was a very devout Christian and wrote, in fact, some very moving Christian poetry.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about that, but he did, and I think that I mean it's quite consistent with the college experience, even for someone in Karl Marx's position going back to the 1800s. He was actually radicalized in college,
Mm.
and once he became familiar with the theories of Charles Darwin, then
Mhm.
that's when the gears start to turn in his mind. And yeah,
Well,
so
that was the
it
worst
was
person for him to come across.
yeah, it was Karl Marx who radicalized him, even as is well noted. Joseph Stalin was a seminarian. He wanted to be a priest, and
Shut up.
yeah, and
No way.
yeah, and Joseph Stalin was
Wait, I'm
radicalized.
sorry. I'm sorry. We got it. Somebody's in the comment that I can't.
Mhm.
The biblical stuff is the stuff that set me off. The political
Mhm.
stuff is the stuff that set you off.
Yeah.
I need to.
Mhm.
Taiwan calendar. What about the
Mhm.
fact that Israel is founded by communists?
Mhm.
Lindsay, Linus soloist communists? And it seems like they
Mhm.
were all founded by London communists, and then the communists abandoned. Okay, wait. Okay. So are you trying to tell me, Kaiwan, that God did not tell Israel that they are the chosen people and that he did not give them that land? Is like, and more importantly, did God give Israel the land? Can you answer that for me, please? Okay.
Anyway, maybe if he was around when we did our live on Monday, I
Mhm.
talked about the socialist roots of Israel, which
Mhm.
again is why for a moment the Soviets kind of flirted with this idea
What you mean, like
of
1948?
yeah,
That
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So people think I don't know. Do people think that they didn't exist before? I don't think people are aware that God literally said, "I'm going to give you this land, the promised land." That was Israel. If y'all don't know, Abraham, his children, his son. Um, uh,
Keisha,
I don't know if people know that. Do they know that?
yeah. All right. People don't get it. This is why when I about a year ago when I first started to dive into this topic and I started to attack the new populist right, I
Mm-hmm.
made it a point to break down the life as much as I could. I mean, within within a decent amount of time. Nobody wants to sit down and watch a super long YouTube presentation. But I did shed a lot of light on the so-called father, the founder of socialist Zionism, a man by the name of Moses Hess. And
Mm-hmm.
so I walked through his life, a lot of his theories and beliefs, again, because there was a very intense kind of liberalizing influence over what I call pan-Germanic society. That's Germany, Prussia, Austria, such and so forth. And a lot of it, I believe, this is my theory, and this is also seems to coincide with the theories and the historical writings of a scholar who was rather left wing, a Jewish historian by the name of Isaiah Berlin, and it had a lot to do with the military and geopolitical conflicts between the Prussians and the French.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Jews at the time, particularly during the time of Karl Marx, when he was a young boy, when Napoleon was kind of running roughshod over Europe at the time, and a lot of Jews in Central Europe saw France and Napoleon as their liberators. And so when you understand a lot of these reformist and revolutionary ideas, a lot of these Enlightenment concepts that were kind of fueling the French Revolution, which eventually, I mean, by the time Napoleon, came about, or rose to prominence, should I say, became the first emperor of France. The revolution was over, but at the same time, a lot of Jewish folks, especially even in Karl Marx's case, the fact that the Jews were oppressed by the Prussian monarchy, a lot of them kind of saw these liberal ideas as their way out, as their outlet, so to speak, to kind of escape the
and they did that with Jesus too. Remember when Jesus
Yeah.
first came on the scene, they kept thinking that because when they read prophecy about the Messiah coming, they were like, he's gonna be king, and he's gonna, he's going to, he's gonna he's gonna be king, and you're gonna be liberated. He didn't say use the word liberated, but you're gonna be free. So when Jesus came on the scene, they're like, oh yes, go ahead, go and tell them Romans where to go. Our king is fine, but he's like, y'all don't understand what I'm trying to say to you, and they didn't understand it then, that he was not coming to be an earthly king, and only save Jews. He was coming back to save the entire world, and he was, not just an earthly king, but he is king of the universe. Anyway,
So like I was saying, that and so and Marx had a lot of other contemporaries who were Jewish at the time. Moses Mendelssohn, Moses Hess was a contemporary of Karl Marx. So all of these men, these Jews were Prussian / German Jews, and I think a lot of them were feeding off the revolutionary ideas of the peoples of France. And that's why I made it a point to mention when we did the live on Monday that a lot of the ideas that we commonly we commonly associate with things that are harmful ideas, types of totalitarian ideas like communism, socialism, fascism, etc. These ideas were a lot of these ideas came out of the kind of, again, the pan-Germanic context. A lot of these ideas came out of that context, and you kind of couple that with this sort of a militaristic cultural dynamic within Central Europe. And then that's when in the 1800s, the light bulb went off, and then Germans decided that they would pursue the goal of toppling this kind of commercial-based society that was, too individualistic, so to speak. Because this kind of collectivity, this kind of collective thinking, when you think about communism, it kind of it takes on a religious fervor. Because when you feel as though you're sacrificing your individuality for the common good, right, it kind of gives you a purpose. It sort of gives you something to live for, because people inherently, again, like I mentioned Monday, they want to feel moral, and they want to have something to which they can sacrifice, or to believe in something that promotes this idea of sacrifice. And so you sacrifice what is in your own best interest for what is in the best interest of the collective. Now, of course, that has disastrous consequences, right? Because it bypasses the immutable facts of human nature. But I guess that's a separate conversation for another day. But I just want to just kind of talk about to give a background, because like I always say, it's not so much a Jewish thing so much as it is the legacy of the Enlightenment and the tradition of liberalism. It just so happens that many of Germans who just so happen to be Jews really took to this idea, right? And it became the cause célèbre of our the intellectual class within the West. It's not so much that Jews are responsible for these bad ideas. It just so happens that a lot of it just so happens that a lot of intellectuals are in fact Jewish. So before you move on, Keisha, because you were kind of taken aback when I mentioned Stalin. Like I said, Stalin wanted to be a priest, but he left seminary and gave up his dreams of joining the ministry or joining the priesthood. The rest is history, right? And he was radicalized. You muted Keisha, but he had
So
left.
who radicalized him?
Joseph Stalin, Charles Darwin, when he
Charles
read
Darwin.
when
Okay.
he read Darwin.
So Marx radicalized Darwin. Darwin radicalized Stalin.
Yeah, Darwin. Yeah,
That is so
Darwin
hilarious.
radicalized Stalin,
You know,
and
history can be like so convoluted and not, it's not black and white. It's just
let,
not.
let me
And then you try to, you find one little thing and you want to just constantly pull on that one little string. And it's like, well, it's a whole ball of other strings over here. Like, you can't just pull on the one and hammer on that and ignore everything else.
right,
Like,
keep it.
that's not wisdom.
Right. Let me hit you with this. This is called the union of the faithful with Christ. The union of the faithful with Christ. It says, through love of Christ, we turn our hearts at the same time toward our brethren who are inwardly bound to us, and for whom he gave himself in sacrifice. Union with Christ could give an inner elevation, comfort in sorrow, calm trust, and a heart susceptible to human love, to everything noble and great, not for the sake of ambition and glory, but only for the sake of Christ. Karl Marx wrote that. So, like I said, it's funny, Keisha, you muted again. It's funny how Karl Marx is, he's remembered as the ethnic Jew who created this pestilence, this scourge that has caused so much turmoil in the world since the publication of the Communist Manifesto in 1848. But very few people forget that Karl Marx was a Christian longer. He was a Christian in his life longer than he was a practicing Jew. Not only that, Keisha.
That's crazy.
But
That
not
is
only that,
wild
Keisha.
to me.
But the majority, but socialism, these socialist ideas were brought. The first American socialists were not Jews. The first American socialists were Christians. You have
You got to mess some people up, But it's really not that. It's not that far of a stretch. Look today. Look at all the so-called Christians, the progressive Christians. Look at them. Like, this thing does not discriminate. Okay, like it's not. Oh, well, it was the Jews because they were. Look at America. Look at all these doggone communists running around here. Miss me with that. No, you show scripture that modern day. God shows that we are too much. You show scripture that modern day Jews are God's. Just go read the Bible. It's an God. This is God's words. I'm paraphrasing. My covenant with the Jews are everlasting. Everlasting. How could we be faithful to a God that we couldn't trust his word? He told the Jews that his covenant was everlasting. And then what? Centuries later, you know what? Y'all, I don't like y'all. Y'all disobedience pissed me off. Never mind. I'm going to renege on my covenant. I don't see this. When you start trying to attribute things to God Almighty that is not, you're crossing the line. Okay, so that's what everybody says, but cannot cite.
Keisha, I'll let you.
Anyway, all right. I want to get
Like I
your
said,
thoughts on this.
I'll let you handle it. When it comes to matters, of conflict, of life and death, war and peace, geopolitical matters. Like I said on Monday, the fact of the matter is that um, the Islamic world, led by Iran, or so Iran believes that it is the head of the global jihad, which before I leave on this live tonight, I'm going to talk a lot about, or to give some insight into Iran's governing philosophy, its entire raison d'etre, its reason for being. I hope I said that right, but its whole reason for being. Like I said before, I couldn't care less about this. I mean, and I'm not saying that it's not important, because I understand how it could be important to some people, but I just find it strange how so many people will talk about how godless America is, and our society across the West is becoming ever more secular, and we're doing this and we're doing that. But yet and still, this idiot Candace Owens will talk about how pretty much America's foreign policy is based upon bad theology, in her opinion. This has nothing to do whatever with theology, especially if you're talking about the United States government and protecting the national interests of the country. This is about civilization versus barbarism. That's what this is about.
Let me let you hear this clip. This is a trip.
There's some breaking news.
What now?
This is just sad on every level. Explosions have been heard over Doha, Qatar, after Iran launched a missile attack on the U.S. base there. Western officials told Axios that Iran had fired 6 missiles toward at least one U.S. base in that Gulf country. That base exists to protect Israel, by the way. I know Barry Weiss is constantly attacking Qatar. Qatar has done more to defend Israel. But anyway, hosting this base, which they don't need at all. It's the richest country in the world. They don't need to do it. They're doing it to be nice. But anyway, sorry. This is so distressing.
It is so distressing. Oh, he clutched his pearls. Now, can you enlighten us? And particularly Tucker, can you help us understand what Iran is really about? And maybe Tucker doesn't understand who these people really are and how they really feel about us. Give us some history, Chuck.
And Qatar is a client state of Iran. But if you go to let me just let you hear it directly from the horse's mouth. Okay. Because again, a lot of people are just, again, they're just confused. The United States government, you mean to tell me the same governmental officials, the same bureaucrats that you all attack and say how much they despise religious people, despise Christians, so on and so forth. But again, maybe I'm not doing a good job making my case, because you all claim, of course, that the Jews have this secret conspiracy, this agenda to really try and undermine Christian civilizations or Christian countries, right? In particular, with the promotion of their bad messages in Hollywood and the music industry, and it just goes and goes and goes, right? But I guess
as if other people don't do those kinds of things. Somehow Jews, first it was Black people, oh no, I'm sorry. First it was all the white Americans. They was the ones only doing they're the evil ones. Now it's the Jews, only they can do particular types of evil. I don't know, this is weird.
Right. Yeah. So if you go to, and there's a lot in here, but if you go to Iran's constitution, Iran does have a constitution. If you go to their constitution, I'm just going to pick this one particular section and read it here. It's under the section of about what they call their ideological army. Here's what Iran's constitution says. I'm taking it right from the horse's mouth. Since again, people are just letting people just lie to them and feed. That's what Keisha, I sincerely believe that these people are just simply, as the old saying goes, whistling through the graveyard. They're trying to act like there's nothing wrong when they know very well something is terribly wrong. Here's what it said, and it's not the Jews and it's not Israel. Here's what Iran's constitution says. It says that part of it, in the formation and equipping of the country's defense forces, due attention must be paid to faith and ideology as the basic criteria. Accordingly, the Army of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, that's the Quds forces, are to be organized in conformity with this goal. And they will be responsible not only for guarding and preserving the frontiers of the country, but also for fulfilling the ideological mission of jihad in God's way. That is, extending the sovereignty of Allah's law throughout the world. This is in accordance with the Quranic verse, prepare against them.
Constitution.
This is their constitution. Prepare against them whatever force you are able to muster, and strings of horses, striking fear into the enemy of God and your enemy and others beside them. You understand? This revolution, the Iranian revolution, going all the way back to 1979. Keisha, this thing is global. This thing is global, and
Yes.
and they don't apologize for it. I'll give you some more insight to the theories and the ideas of Iran. You see, because people, this whole thing about weapons of mass destruction, and they lied about it. Again, I'm going to, because again, Saddam Hussein brought that upon himself. He brought that upon himself. And I guess we don't even talk about Iraq, but again, Iran is doing the exact same thing right now. You see, people say, well, our intelligence lied to us. They lied about weapons of mass destruction, this and that. Now, as a civilian, Keisha, you and I mean, I don't have I don't have a security clearance, so I don't know. I can only trust what our intelligence apparatchiks tell us. I can only trust what's reported in the media. Again, I'm not privy to that kind of information, so we don't know. Now, we can, it's okay to be naturally skeptic, right? And say, well, wait a minute, man, you're telling me that you really have to deliver. I get that. I understand that, right? I truly do. But to, Candace, Owens, Tucker, what they don't realize is, or they just choose to ignore, that it's not so much about whether how close Iran was to acquiring a nuclear weapon, or how close they were to being able to weaponize their their uranium deposits or whatever they had going on over there. No matter how close they were, no matter if they were trying to do it, right? Iran, given their statements, giving their governing philosophy and their founding principles, they are not owed the benefit of the doubt. They haven't deserved it, because this is not a regime that operates in good faith. It doesn't. The nuclear bomb is a side issue, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
It's what they want to do and what they are dedicated to doing. You just simply have to ask yourself, to what lengths are they willing to go to achieve it? Because if they're not nuclear, then how can they compete with these very same countries that they claim they want to topple, in their own words? Because they have declared a war on you a long time ago. A long time ago. Iran declared war on you a long time ago. Let me go to it here. This is
definitely did. That is a really good point.
Listen to what, people remember the infamous Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. right? No, he's the former president of Iran, right?
I remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot the current Muhammad. Was it Muhammad Raza something? I forgot but of course, Ahmadinejad was. I mean, he was the guy. Everybody knew Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Here's a statement. I'm just gonna give you a couple because I'm gonna save a lot of this for when I come, and I'm gonna unpack Iran on my YouTube channel.
I can't wait because
in a
now
couple
I'm
of weeks.
interested more in the history of it, and I'm interested in
Yeah.
that.
Here was a statement made by Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in 2005. The message of the revolution is global and is not restricted to a specific time or place. It is a human message and it will move forward. Have no doubt, Allah willing, Islam will conquer what? It will conquer all the mountaintops in the world. The Ayatollah in November of 2015. What is significant about that date, Keisha? November of 2015. That was about 3 months after the JCPOA was signed, the Iran nuclear deal. Just a couple of months after the the nuclear deal was formalized and cemented and went forward with it, sanctions were lifted, and we all know what happened. Here's what the Ayatollah said just months after that. Quote, "We shall export our revolution to the world until the cry that there is no God but Allah resounds all over the world. There will be struggle." Let me say that again, but I don't think people heard me. We shall export our revolution to the whole world until the cry that there is no God but Allah resounds over the world. There will be struggle. Now just
And
one more.
Ahmadinejad.
Nope. This was the Ayatollah.
Oh, the Ayatollah.
In 2015. Okay. I believe at that time the Ayatollah was Ali Khamenei. You know, I don't know. Right? I don't speak Farsi, so I try to do the best I can.
Yeah.
But this is the one here, and I got tons more. Just wait a couple of weeks.
These people they're warring people. Like that's what they do.
Savages.
Savages. Exactly. And we're not talking about every single Muslim. Of course, we know we're talking about the radical, the Islamists, the Islamists, those people. Okay.
You have to qualify. You have to qualify that because there are Muslims who are perfectly decent, law-abiding, polite, and sincere and ethical. All those great things. I mean, because we have a secular legal system in place that is, of course, ready, willing, and equipped to deal with the consequences of the kind of social disruptions that you see in other parts of the world. But make no mistake about it. I firmly believe, and a buddy of mine lives here. Like I said, I'm from Detroit. I live but a stone's throw away from Dearborn Heights. We have the giant Islamic Institute on the street called Ford Road, not too far from where I live. And this is where, if you go on Iranian TV, you see a lot of the figures who go to the Islamic Institute just a stone's throw from where I'm sitting as I speak right now and hear all the things that they say. A lot of this stuff is going on in my own backyard right here. Now you'll be a lot safer strolling through at night in Dearborn Heights in a predominantly Muslim city than you would in Detroit. You make no mistake about it.
They don't play that.
But their politics, right, are still their politics. You have to understand that there are sleeper cells all throughout this country and all throughout parts of Europe and all various parts of the world. I mean, there just are, because they're sitting back by, they're waiting for you, and they're waiting until you get weak. And I'm gonna tell, and I got another example. I'm gonna explain to you where this whole idea comes from of sitting back, waiting, and biding their time until you get weak. But let me get you with another quote, Keisha. I really like this one. This one is from a man named Holem Hussein Kabe Podvar. Holem Hussein Kabe Podvar. Not he's mega famous on the international scene in terms of politics, but he is a member. He's a big muckety muck, a big deal over there in Iran. He's been part of their government since the revolution of 1979, and I'm not exactly sure what his title is or how many titles he holds at this very moment. But last I checked, he was one of Iran's brigadier generals of the IRGC. That's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Here's a statement he made, K. Padvar. He says, quote, "There are only two things that would end enmity between us and the U.S. Either the U.S. president and EU leaders should convert to Islam and imitate the supreme leader, or Iran should abandon Islam and the Islamic Revolution. If they are not going to turn Muslim, we are not going to abandon Islam or the revolution either. But I do not know why some believe that someday we will make peace with the US and start relations with them." Said it'll never happen. "Until they convert to Islam, we will wage war against them."
Wow.
It's not a game.
It's
This is
not.
not a game. So while you want to sit back and debate, again, Keisha, this is not me even trying to come for you, Keisha, but I'm saying if people want to sit back and debate and talk about who's the chosen people and Israel said this and God said that and the Jews this and this and this and that, while Christians and Jews are sitting back having these high-minded intellectual theological debates, right? You're gonna be getting
The business.
a Russian-built AK-47 shoved up your rear end.
They do not. You know these things. You know, I think they are important to talk about biblically because I think that these things are connected. I don't separate the political. You know, when it comes to certain things, God is some we have to watch politically because God tells us when certain things happen, it will let us know, you know, kind of like where we are in the, you know, in prophecy. And so a lot of it has to do with nations and different, you know, the temple being rebuilt. That's why this whole thing about like Israel, it's just a spiritual thing. Like, well, anyway, I don't even want to get into all of that.
And
But
this
it's important for believers, especially when people do not have a good understanding of some of these things. You know, as people who they say that they are our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. I feel like I'm trying to help them. You know, obviously some of these people don't come in good faith and they just want to argue. They're not really searching for the truth. You have to kick the tires on your own arguments. You could be wrong. Like you can be believing the wrong thing. Clearly, like we see Tucker and Candace. I don't know, and many other people. I don't know where this idea that the Middle East or Iraq, maybe not Iraq now, but certainly Iran, let's just stick with them. They're not friendly. Like this idea that we can just exist as America, totally let's just worry about us and we can be closed off to the rest of the world. Help us understand, Chuck, why that's not possible. It's not reasonable, it's not wisdom, and it's really not even possible considering we are superpower.
It's not. I mean, you know, that's how historically speaking, if anyone knows anything about military history, that's how wars are won. This guy Robert Johnston, he's talking about either God's a liar or you're wrong. Listen, God's not a liar, Robert, but you certainly are.
Okay.
God doesn't lie, but you are certainly a liar. All this talk about sending billions to Israel and our sons dying in their wars and stuff. Well, again, Keisha, we talked about this whole military thing before.
Yeah.
You know, our sons aren't dying in Israel's war. What part of it don't you understand that it's not so much an issue of it just solely being Israel's war, again, because Islam is set against the whole of the civilized world. That's not the way geopolitics works. This is why people, kill me who could just sit back and talk and talk and talk on the internet and in other places, right? But they've never really had to make the kind of hard decisions that one would have to make, all right, when trying to decide how best to move forward in order to protect the lives of their own citizens.
Mhm.
When you again, and mind you, Keisha, never mind the billions of dollars that we send in Palestinian relief. They don't talk about that, do they? They act like we just send money to Israel so they can
They
destroy
act like Israel is the only country that we send money to,
the
period.
so-called Palestinians. Keisha, you know how much money, how many Hamas leadership. Do you know the leadership of Hamas? They're worth billions of dollars. Where do you think this money
Because of
comes from?
Iran.
Where do you think this money, and not just only Iran, Keisha, but from Iran, or from us through Iran, or from us
Yeah,
directly from the United Nations and their subsidy,
yeah, that's true.
something called the United Nations Relief Agency. It's called UNRWA. A lot of people are familiar with it. If you haven't looked it up, look it up. But we haven't a bunch of our sons have not died fighting Israel's wars. Israel fights its own wars, period, point blank. Now, sure, you may have some auxiliary support and backup and moral support from the United States, but Israel has fought its own wars. Israel was largely left abandoned in the Middle East in 1948. Israel defended itself, so much so, Keisha, to the point where the Islamic authorities all throughout the Islamic world, that's Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and so on and so forth, they were so fed up with the fact that they couldn't destroy little itty bitty Israel, Keisha, that they legitimately and genuinely began to believe that Israel had some kind of superpower, that they were dealing with some kind of magic. And all throughout, Keisha, all throughout the Islamic world, Keisha, in various Islamic countries, there's literally a culture of, I mean, it's literally like if you trip and fall, or if you catch a cold, it's like, well, it must have been a Jew, or it must have been. I mean, they are so paranoid in the Islamic world, and they blame
I
their.
mean, look, if there was 2,000 years of evidence of your God showing up for you, because I mean, it is truly remarkable how Israel, this little teeny tiny place the size of New Jersey, has been able to defend itself and stand 10 toes down, literally surrounded by enemies. That ain't nobody but God. I mean, God, that is where our Savior walked. That is where, like it reminds me of Elijah when he's like out there with those, what was it, those the Baal people, when they were going toe to toe, and they were like, who's God? They were going to see whose God is superior. This is what this reminds me of. It's like, yeah, they watching, they looking like it must be some kind of magic. No, it's God.
They listen. They are so paranoid. I was reading a story. There was an Egyptian a tourist resort attraction in Egypt. I forgot. I think it was like back in 2004, and they were having this spate of shark attacks off the coast of Egypt at this resort, and they began to believe that Israel was sending these sharks to try and undermine their tourist industry, and so there began this huge effort in Egypt and in other places. They literally began sort of like investigating the birds and the squirrels or the whatever, because they thought Israel was putting intelligence or microphones on wild animals and surveillance devices on sharks and pigeons, and they thought that Israel was sending it because they couldn't figure out how, first of all, how's this country, how they're able to get the drop on us like this? How are they always 10 steps ahead of us? And why can't we destroy them? Back during the days of the days of the Soviet Union, as I mentioned in my talk, after Jordan, Syria, and Egypt lost the Yom Kippur War in 1973, the leader of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev, said enough is enough. If y'all can't get the job done, then why do we keep supporting y'all? And Israel had whooped on Egypt so bad in the Yom Kippur War that Egypt was afraid. It's funny the way they talk like Egypt. I mean, Israel is just so evil and wicked. If you listen to this idiot Candace Owens, you would think if Israel wanted to take over the whole of the Near East, they could have done it a long time ago. During the Yom Kippur War, Egypt was but a few dozen miles outside of Cairo. On the northern front against Syria, the Syrian authorities were afraid that Israel was about to take Damascus because they pushed Syria and Egypt so far back, and then once they realized, okay, let's just let a sleeping dog lie, and Israel retreated, pulled the forces back, and said, all right, now start some more mess, and we just gonna do this all over again. But I'm gonna get up now. I'm gonna let you go. All right, you come. All right, and they let him go. Just like now, right? It's ceasefire. Trump gets mad. They don't know what the F they're doing. Stop the bombing. What they do? All right, man. They stopped. Every single solitary Iranian leader would be dead today if Israeli authorities wanted it to be so. Dead today. But the reason why, Keisha, is because you muted again if you wanted to jump in. And
Yeah,
I have.
So did Netanyahu, now tell me if this is true. This is what I read this quite a while ago. I don't even remember where I read it. But I read that because, Netanyahu, he was prime minister before this time now.
Yeah.
And he was soft on, according to what I read, his first term, he was very soft, thinking like I can appeal to them if I just, we kind of leave them alone and deal with them nicely. And it didn't go so well. And so, he was criticized really heavily. And it was like this time I think he barely won the election.
Well, yeah.
And then it's like this time he was like, I'm not going to. It's kind of like Trump. With Trump, the first time he was like a little like, oh, I'm not really sure. And then this time he's like, okay, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Is that true? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know if he was necessarily a little more conciliatory, a little softer.
Mm-hmm.
Last go round. I mean, that may be true. I can't say that definitively. A lot of people, she's talking about how, for example, could the October 7th attacks actually happen? Israel wanted this to happen. They knew about it and they ignored it because they wanted to start their war. People just throw all these things out that they can't necessarily substantiate. But that may be true. I will say that as I said on Monday, that Benjamin Netanyahu was one of the main voices in Israeli politics, warning Ariel Sharon not to abandon the Gaza Strip. Said if we abandon the Gaza Strip, we're going to have problems. And again, just another attempt to try and extend an olive branch to the Arabs, to the Muslims. But again, they will smile in your face and stab you in the back. Again, this is what they're trained. First of all, it's in their religious text to be this way. I talked about the Treaty of Udaybiya on Monday, but not only that, again, they learned of a lot of these tactics. Once again, from the Soviet Union, because a lot of them were trained. I mean, the first Rohala Khamenei, of course, he attended a Soviet training school. The Ayatollah of Iran, he was a Soviet backed and Soviet trained operative, and so even someone in Yasser Arafat, as I said before, in the beginning, the main or major country leading the effort to destroy Israel was Egypt. A lot of this radicalism came out of Egypt. Again, Egypt being the homeland of the Muslim Brotherhood and its founding. as I said,
Wait, wait, wait. I'm sorry. Could you imagine, being in Israel and being a Jew, and then Israel and Egypt is coming back? You're like, not these
yeah,
doggone pharaohs.
it-
Like
again,
what?
yeah,
Like we
again,
did this 2,000 years ago,
yeah.
or over 2,000 years ago. Like what in the world? That.
Yeah, and so like Yasser Arafat, one time uh, uh, um, president of the like you all know Yasser Arafat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but again, Yasser Arafat was not a Palestinian. I mean, of course, the term was invented as kind of like an administrative a designation because at the time, prior to the creation of Israel in 1948, after UN resolution, I think it was 181 or 151 or something like that. Prior to, Arabs resented the term. They didn't even like to be considered. They didn't like to be called Palestinians because they understood that it was not a distinctive thing. And then the Soviets gave them this idea to artificially create this entity called a Palestinian and give it this false and erroneous and fallacious background to suggest that the modern day Palestinians were a certain set of the ancient Canaanites. Even going so far as to, as I mentioned to you before, when we went live about a year and a half ago talking about this, that according to the Palestinian propagandists, their authorities there, they claim Jesus to be one of their own. They claim that Jesus is a Palestinian, and so this is what they claim as, of course, as part of their propaganda. But again, as I mentioned, Yasser Arafat was a son of a wealthy merchant who attended Cairo University. Yasser Arafat, the first leader of the Palestinians after he served in Gamal Nasser's government. But once he was handpicked to lead the cause of Palestinian liberation, he was given a phony background by the Soviet Union, and all of a sudden he became Palestinian. But he was really actually born in Egypt. He was an Egyptian. He wasn't Palestinian.
That's crazy. That is
Yasser Arafat
crazy.
was an Egyptian.
And these
So
people really want to think that they can, I don't know, you're pissed off because of 9/11 and we think it was a lie. And so you think you're going to be able to unravel all this stuff, who lied, who died, you're not going to be like,
So
listen.
I did not forget your question. Let me circle back because again, you asked about what about war. I mean, this is how, and this is historically, this is how it has always been. I mentioned in passing, kind of last time, I just made a brief reference to the war between the Greeks and the Persians, right? But after or before the Greeks could take on the Persians, they had to all the Greek city states that were autonomous had to be consolidated, and this was the goal of Alexander the Great because he wanted to get revenge against the Persians. But before Alexander could get revenge against the Persians, he essentially kind of began this crusade, this campaign against the various Greek city states, particularly the Thebans, because he looked at the Thebans as betrayers, because it was the peoples of Thebes, I believe, that sided with the Persians against their own Greek brothers in the original war that the Greeks lost to the Persians. And so the Macedonians, right? They've had to annihilate the Thebans. They rolled into Athens and Sparta, and so the rest is history. But that's how wars are. That's how wars are won. It's a geopolitics without getting too just burying ourselves in the weeds. It's a simple premise. You hurt your enemies and you help your friends. It's that simple. Israel and the United States have mutual enemies because they have mutual interests.
And I would say a large part of that is because we have a mutual God.
Oh, God, that is true.
I mean,
it is because that mutuality, Keisha, that theological, out of that comes a very similar, talking about a very similar ethical makeup, very similar
Yes.
moral makeup, a very similar political makeup. Israel is the only Western country, the only free democratic country in the entire region. And people have the nerve to ask these stupid questions about why are we so closely connected to the Israeli people.
I
It's just
really.
it is just asinine. And so
Mhm.
that's what you do. You do not wait, because guess what? While you're sitting back saying, nah, screw Israel, screw this, screw that. Why do you think that we're constantly eyeing China to try and figure out and come up with the plan of
Yeah.
action in the event that China decides to take Taiwan? You see,
Mm-hmm.
because you got the Adamites, the Abrahamites, the Ishmaelites, the
Yes.
Jews, the Christians.
The Canaan
We all
Israelite.
right, we all bickering with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but all the other folk, the Hindus, the Buddhists, they ain't got nothing to do with what we got going on. We just bickering, but yet and still, we're looking at China and we're saying that we cannot allow China to take Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
because if China takes Taiwan, China expands its interest. It becomes emboldened.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes more powerful. And
Let me
when you,
ask you, why isn't Iran is an ally of China?
they have
Like,
an
so
allyship, especially but
they're closer. Like, why not? They China do big stuff. Like, why isn't China a problem? Why is China not a problem?
you mean you mean according to people who have this idea that
No, I'm
military
saying for
intervention is.
like these Islamists, like the Iranians. How come they ain't got? Why don't you have beef with
Are
China?
all
Like
right, they,
they're closer to you. They are, like why you got to be looking all like
they
what?
coming.
Why you got to bother us
They
and
come
Israel?
because like the Soviets said, and going back to Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, all these countries that were involved in these wars against Israel from 1948 all the way up to through modern times. Especially by the 1960s, when
Mhm,
I talked about the American communist. His last name is Loomer. His first name escapes me now. Who
mhm,
wrote the book? I'll pull it up. But again, they began to have this idea, like the theory, should I say, as to why Israel kept defeating the Arabs. And of course, the attitude, because again, remember, the Soviets are our main, or they view us. This is the Soviets during that time viewed us as their major enemy, right? So
oh,
we're pitted.
okay.
So we're pitted against each other,
Mhm,
and so the Soviets are supporting the Arab Muslims. Why? Because the Arabs are embracing Marxism, Leninism.
mhm,
So they're embracing these
mm.
concepts, embracing these ideas,
I
right?
get it now.
And
So
so they're saying, oh,
China's a
okay,
brother. They're a
right. So
brother in
yeah,
ideology.
so again, so right, so they're saying, okay, well, the Soviets said, okay, well, we'll help the Egyptians,
Mhm,
right? And when the Israelis defeat their client states, they're trying to figure out why this keeps happening. Oh, this must be the result of of American involvement, American sabotage, not just in the geopolitical affairs of the Soviet Union, but within Islam itself, because they blame their ineffectiveness when it comes to annihilating Israel on their lack of unity. Because Iran sees itself as the true representatives, perhaps the proper term to apply here would be the caliph, or the kind of this new caliphate, so to
mhm,
speak, in
mhm.
Iran. They see themselves as being the authentic representative of real Islam. But as a Shia empire or a Shia country, I mean, they kind of have this petty empire, with all of their various proxy groups all over the region. But they say that they can't conquer the way they want to because they're too divided. This is one of the reasons why Iran, third on their list, or maybe fourth, maybe Great Britain is third, I'm not sure. But you have the Israel is the little Satan, right? America is the big Satan. And Iran has also vowed to destroy the other Sunni Gulf states, because Iran, as a Shia empire, is beefing with the Sunni radicals in the Sunni empire, led primarily by Saudi Arabia. This is why you always hear all the time why Saudi Arabia and Israel kind of have this, shaky partnership, because
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia is saying, well, they don't like us because
Right.
we're Sunni. We don't like them because they're Shia. We may
Mhm.
not like you because you're a Jew, but
Mhm.
Iran is the bigger problem.
Right.
So
We
Saudi
we
Arabia,
we like them. We don't like them more.
yeah. So Saudi Arabia said, okay, we'll deal with y'all. Even going so far as, of course, as has been reported, that Saudi Arabia let Israel, fly its weaponry and its equipment over its airspace. And
Yeah.
so this is kind of what happened. And so it became this thing where Israel became an outpost of Western imperialism. So this was the tagline, especially considering the fact that a lot of Asia and a lot of Africa have been colonized by the West. When you sit Israel right in the smack dab in the middle of that, you couple that with all of these nationalist uprisings during the Cold War in the midpoint of the 20th century, Israel became a representative, a political representative of this kind of imperialism and colonialism that Africans and Arabs or folks in the Middle East claim that they were trying to defeat. The Soviet Union was posing as the force of anti-imperialism in the world. So everybody was reaching back to the Soviet Union with their hands out. And the Soviets were willing to assist the struggle of jihad in order to destroy Israel, because they thought by destroying a client state of the United States and Great Britain, which was Israel, it would help them in the wider geopolitical war, the wider Cold War, to eventually topple all of the Western democracies, particularly the United States and our allies in Western Europe, because of course at that time Eastern Europe was still a part of the Soviet Empire.
Yeah.
So
Let
this
me,
is the way
because it's
conflict and
already
war. This is the way
it's
it works.
already 15 after 9. This go
Yeah,
by
yeah, yeah,
so fast,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's insane. We're gonna play this last clip.
Okay.
Let me before we I just want to say thank you, Walker One, for the super chat. He says, as a veteran, I know most people have no clue about war. People who have been in war know. Freedom and liberty come at a cost. Yes, you're right. Thank you for your service, Walker One. And we are people that don't understand that. We are definitely, we are not, go to war. No, but we understand that sometimes you have to, and we thank God for people like you
Right.
who put their lives on the line. So thank you for that.
I'm
And
veteran,
Paul
man.
too, I know is a I think Paul is a veteran as well. Let me play
All
this
right,
clip so
and
we can get
veteran,
mad. I don't want Shell mad at me because I don't want them problems.
I won't tell me I'm mad at me either.
Believe in international liberalism. There was no imminent threat to the United States when Trump made this decision to do what Bibi wanted. And I want to be clear here. This was not Trump's decision. It was Bibi Netanyahu's decision. And that is the reason that he did it. And we're very aware that Israel is dictating our foreign policy, and we would now like that to stop.
Okay, but you wouldn't disagree, presumably, that Iran has been the main sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East through the Houthis, through Hezbollah, through Hamas. I mean, that's widely accepted and recognized. They've done
If things widely accepted. Now, that's just kind of
really. You don't think they
Israel
have?
has been a terrorist state. Okay, Israel right now is imparting a genocide and a Holocaust on the Gazan people. So I'm really over this idea like somehow Israel has the moral high ground and we have to get behind them.
I didn't say
because
that.
we got to go after the bad guys.
I wasn't saying that.
But we have.
Oh, hang on. Look, we can come to Gaza, where I think we'll reach agreement about what Israel's government's been doing there in the last few months. Without
but it's
any
relevant.
Well, okay. So, you cool? You calm?
Lord have mercy.
So
Hey, look here.
Israel has been the sponsor of terrorism. It is not Iran. We did not have an imminent threat. Chuck, I want you to respond to those two things for me.
Stupid broad. You don't wait until the threat is imminent, stupid. That's what you don't do. There
And
was no.
why don't we do that? I know you explained it, but why? Just briefly, why wouldn't you wait
Why?
until the threat gets
Because
more
when the
imminent?
threat is imminent, that's when you have the kind of war that her and the likes of Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Massey and Ron Paul. This is why. Because when war is imminent or when a threat is imminent, that's when you have war. When your enemy is prepared to unleash the hellhounds, they will do so, especially when they have shown and when they have said that they are committed to doing so. You're coming up with all of these wild, overblown, pulling stuff out your rear end, talking about genociding and annihilating the Gazan people when their population has increased over the decade. All it takes is a simple statistical Google search, and you can see that the Palestinian population has increased. There's no genocide going on here. It doesn't take a genius to know that. But that's why you don't.
Where is, because I mean, Candace and other people who believe this, they would say this is propaganda that we're hearing, that Israel is trying to preserve civilian life. They're not really doing that. That's just propaganda.
No, they are.
But here, I don't understand how they can't see the cultural difference. What these people have never been a civilian worrying about the civilian. Right. They're not that kind of people. And Israel, historically has been like, why is it hard to see culturally these two people? They don't see the world the same way. I don't understand what is so
it's a lot of options. I mean, I don't know this woman, don't want to know her. Okay, I can't say, I can't read her mind. There are a lot of options. Like I said, I talk about how the effects that liberalism has on the mind.
Right.
Really, I mean,
what? I was just talking about this with Antonio. We were talking about when somebody is deceived. And I was like, I think when a person is under deception, you become blind to the truth. It's not just like you're believing this one lie. Because if you notice, and I noticed this in my own life before God delivered me from that skin worship, when all was said and done, I felt like I could see clearly. Deception, I think it blinds you to facts. Like, I really do. Like, this whole thing about like a libtard and a liberal brain rot, I think we're more trite than we know. I know we kind of joke about it, but I think there is something to that. I really do.
And when I say liberalism, I'm talking about from a philosophic standpoint. For example, when you read, of course, the first few sentences of the Declaration of Independence, I mean that is liberalism in a nutshell.
Yes, I mean, I get it, but I mean,
but here's the thing. But herein lies the problem. If you know that, of course, I don't know if you're familiar with Thomas Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence, but in that opening line, it had the language was a bit more overtly religious. It was a little more overtly spiritual.
Oh, okay.
And I forgot who it was. It may have been Patrick Henry. I can't remember. Somebody kind of pulled Jefferson to the side, figured to be speaking, and told him that, no, here's what you want to say. It kind of changed it a bit because it was kind of, he mentioned or kind of gave a wink and a nod to God, when it came to the question of unalienable rights, right? But what is it? But remember, what does it say? A lot of people like to quote this. It says that we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, people, but see, there were folks who were saying, well, wait a minute, not so fast. Not so fast. Is it that every man is created equal? Is it self-evident? Meaning that it is so true that any rational person could come to that conclusion. But what say you about the deeper meaning of life? See, these are the questions that Rousseau had. These are questions that Nietzsche had.
Mm-hmm.
That there is no such thing as a self-evident truth. This is Nietzsche's opinion. I'm forgetting the word I want to use, but I'll just say opinion.
Mm-hmm.
His opinion was that no, right? You know, wars, and it goes back and it kind of blends into this whole question about war, because Nietzsche had this thing about war. He said that war comes down to a conflict of ideas. What eventually becomes quote unquote truth, in his opinion, was the result of whomever could win that ideological conflict. Again, sometimes those ideological conflicts break out into actual war. But that's what happens when you don't have reason, right? This is why the West, the pillars of the West,
Mm-hmm.
two pillars of the West, of course, is faith and reason.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have one without the other, right?
Yeah.
Because reason without faith gets you communism, Nazism, and fascism.
All right.
But faith without reason gives you religious fanaticism,
Yeah.
which is what you have in Islam.
Yep.
And so that's the question. How self-evident is this truth? Because they don't seem to see it, or for whatever reason, don't want to see it. See, this is why I say when I talk about liberalism, and you know, we actually believe what Thomas Jefferson said, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, you can believe it's true, but the greater question becomes, what do you do about the people who don't realize or can't see what you think is self-evident? What does that mean?
That is a
Because
great question.
if everyone is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then that must mean that life has value and that life has a purpose. And how do you determine what is valuable and what the purpose of a thing is? It's more than just material acquisition. It's more than just equality and living a no. These are deeply rooted philosophical questions. Why is life valuable? Why is life important? And why am I here? And what am I supposed to do with my life?
Yeah.
You have people who genuinely believe that the purpose of their life is to die, to spread the truth of Allah as they see it. They don't care about anything else.
Their truth, their self-evident truth. But you know,
That's
I never thought
their
about that.
self-evident truth. So I don't know what's going on in this woman's mind, Keisha. But like I said, you know, when it came to the Arabs during the First World War, you brought up the Free Arabian Legion, right? Hitler's African army battalion, or whatever the word would be that we use. But you know, the Arab Muslims, they went from one sponsor to another. During after the First World War, leading up to the Second World War, until it was over, the Arabs were in line, were in league with the Nazis. After Hitler was defeated, the Arabs were in league with the Soviets. They went from one totalitarian group to the next.
Just like a little thought, just here,
Right.
there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Just
But
being passed around.
But they'll get them. But like I say, in
Like a
their
roll in
minds,
the
they would have turned their backs on the Soviets. They would have turned their backs on the Nazis and the fascists in Italy. They would have. They're just sitting back, biding their time, waiting until they're powerful enough, so they think, and they're waiting to the point where they think you're weak enough. And let me tell you one more thing, Keisha, and I'll let you close out. This is not long. And this is kind of like where I'm getting this from. I don't know if you heard that he was one of the most notorious Hamas members, leaders, one of the most militant. You know, he's dead now. Israel killed him back in 2024. Yahya Sinwar. I don't know if you heard that name before. You may have heard it before. Yeah. Sinwar. You hear the name constantly. Sinwar. Sinwar. His full name is Yahya Ishmael Hassan Sinwar. You hear the name all the time, right? He had been caught by the Israelis some years ago. He was tried and convicted of murder. He was given 4 life sentences. 4 life sentences. But guess what? He wasn't convicted of murdering Israelis. He murdered 4 Palestinians. Because, man, they kill each other now. He murdered them because they were the traitors, or they were not ideologically committed enough, or whatever the case may be. Yahya Sinwar is known as being, I mean, he's like an enforcer. You don't mess with Sinwar. He kills 4 Palestinians. The Israelis finally catch him. He's given 4 life sentences. Fast forward some years later, an Israeli soldier by the name of Gilad Shalit, he gets captured by Hamas. He's taken in as a hostage. This was one of the biggest controversies in Israel at the time. They engaged in this massive prisoner swap. You can look this story up because you may not remember it. Israel was so committed to getting this kid back, this young man back, Shalit, that they traded over 1,000 terrorists that they caught that were in Israeli prison. They traded 1,000 terrorists for this one hostage. Now people say, man, that's crazy. I wouldn't have done that. And yeah, it does sound crazy.
It does.
But they did it. And it was a very controversial. People thought that they spent too much to get this one guy back, right? And one of those men was Sinwar that they gave back. Say, bro, don't give him Sinwar. They gave him Sinwar, right? But while in prison, Sinwar, and while he was serving time, guess what he did? He killed 2 other men in prison. He killed 2 more Palestinians in prison. He beheaded them in prison. How he beheads somebody in prison, I don't know how he manages to do that, but he beheads 2 more Palestinians in prison. They give that guy back. But while he's serving his time, guess what? He strikes up a kind of weird friendship with the Jewish doctor that worked at the prison. They strike up a friendship and they talk, and Sinwar openly tells them what he wants to do to Israel and what he plans on doing. And they just sit back and they talk and they exchanging, repartee. They're talking. One day, Sinwar he's having a hard time walking. He can't get his balance. He keeps falling over. So his Jewish friend who works at the prison notices that Sinwar is displaying some weird symptoms. They don't know what's wrong with him. He suspects that he may have some kind of neurological issue going on. So Sinwar is taken out of the prison, shipped to an Israeli hospital. They discover that Sinwar has a tumor growing on the base on his brain. Jewish doctors remove the tumor from Sinwar's brain, saves his life, puts him back in the prison after saving his life, and eventually sends him back into Gaza, into the hands of Hamas. Sinwar told that Jewish doctor, he said, don't worry, your society, your country, it is getting weak. He said, and when you are at your weakest, we will strike and we will destroy you. They send Sinwar back, and he ends up masterminding the October 7th attack. They removed the tumor from his brain, saved his life. He comes back and murders thousands of Israelis after they saved his life.
That makes me want to cry. Dang.
And it's to hear people say the things they say about Jews, how decent so many of them are. Most of them are. There's a small Jewish community in a suburb of Detroit called Southfield. You see the Jewish people all the time. They work with their hats and their little locks and stuff like that. And it's, they don't bother nobody. They're just there. But I ride by Southfield sometimes and I see them and I hear the things people say. And it's just,
they could have killed him on the operating table. They could have killed him so many times. The man literally they knew what he was.
Yeah.
That is crazy
to me. Stone cold killer. They saved his life, and he told him, "I'll be back." And most of the people who died on October 7th, most of them,
Mhm.
A lot of these people were a lot liberals, a lot of left wing, a
Yeah,
lot of
they were like young, just
a lot
doing,
of these people were peace activists who believed in the two-state solution, who believed that Muslims and Jews could live in peace.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Let's end on that story because that is powerful. That is powerful.
And this
Whew,
stupid woman,
my
Candace
God.
freaking
This
Owens, she
is
needs to
heartbreaking.
realize, man, I don't know,
You
pray
know
for
what?
her. I don't know
We
what to
have
do
to
with her.
we have to pray for her. Honestly. I know that this is what God tells us to do, y'all. We have to pray for those people who are blind. We got to let God deal with whatever is happening in her heart. We don't know. We don't know what we have no idea, but God knows. So we have to pray for this, despite what when we hear these things, the righteous anger that wells up inside of us. We gotta turn that around and pray for her, because as much as we don't like what she's saying, I still do not want this woman to go to hell. I don't want her to go to hell. And I'm not saying she's going to go to hell because she said mean things about the Jews. I'm saying what she's believing is not the gospel. Because when God is on the inside of you and you are reading and you, especially when you're a new Christian, she just converted.
Right.
You're typically I don't understand how she says all this and is truly a Christian. But let's pray for her, Tucker, all of these people, because this stuff, that rhetoric. I don't know if you heard when I played that opening when she was like on the widespread level, on the molecule, like these people are
Mm-hmm.
evil.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't,
Mm-hmm.
but that's what she was. That's how I understood what she was
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Yeah. She used the word molecular.
That sounds like hatred. That is
Yeah.
not just I got an opinion on policy. No,
Right.
baby girl, that's something else. Y'all, we got to pray for her.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jesus loves you. Thank you, Walker, for supporting the channel. Chuck, thank you so much. This little short piece, our other video is doing really well, but this little short piece just
You're welcome.
felt more impactful than even the
Yeah.
first one. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting all of that.
And for all of you, people need to stay in their own lane, fight their own wars. You know, they say, well, because America first, guess what? We wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be America. We'd still be part of the British Empire, ladies and gentlemen, because there were other countries involved in the Revolutionary War that helped us. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know? Did y'all know France? You know, France helped us fight the British in the Revolutionary War. Did y'all know that? Okay, then. All right. America first, though. Okay. They
Forgot
wouldn't be
about
in
that.
America, stupid. They wouldn't be in America, stupid. You don't
That is
sit back and retreat from the world and let your enemies create coalitions and get stronger. You don't do that. You will be conquered. All right.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with a live on Monday. I might have to drag Chuck back. I don't know. We'll see if he's
All
available.
right.
Oh, no, he's gonna be on vacation. But thank you so much again, Chuck. I really, really appreciate it. This was powerful. Thank you. Jesus loves you. Anthony to the chat. Y'all are awesome, amazing. Y'all jumped on and got to it. I didn't even really, make a big announcement, but thank you so much for doing it. I really appreciate you guys. We will see you later. Bye.
Peace out.